Unsolved.
The JonBenet Ramsey case. The first 48 minutes. Mrs. Patricia Ramsey called 911 and spoke to Kim Archuleta. She spoke for a minute and 20 seconds, relaying to the operator that her daughter was missing and a ransom note was left behind. As Mrs. Ramsey spoke, she later said that Mr. Ramsey was reading the 3 pages of the ransom note. Mrs. Ramsey called Barbara Fernie and spoke to John Fernie. "We need help. Please come over here." Mrs. Ramsey called Priscilla White and spoke to Cliff Gaston, who answered the phone, and he handed it over to Priscilla. "JonBenet is missing. Please get over here. We need you." Mr. Ramsey went upstairs to JonBenet's bedroom, looked under her bed, then afterwards stared at the wall, wringing his hands in anguish. Then he went to the 3rd floor to get dressed. Mrs. Ramsey walked to the front of the house thinking, "Got to get the money. Money will get her back." Officer Rick French arrived at the residence and parked his vehicle across the street. Mrs. Ramsey was wearing a red sweater and black velvet pants. She told French that there was a note, "Our daughter has been kidnapped and we are trying to get the money." Mr. Ramsey walked down the front stairs and met them. He told French that JonBenet was missing and his son Burke was asleep upstairs. Mr. Ramsey guided French through the kitchen to the hallway. There, a 3-page note was on the floor by the back glass door. Mr. Ramsey said that Patsy found the note on the bottom step of the stairs. French read the note. "Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. Any deviation from my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. Don't try to grow a brain. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC." Mrs. Ramsey told French that at about 5:45, she entered JonBenet's bedroom and JonBenet was not in there. She walked down the spiral staircase and found the note. Then she immediately called 911. In a police interview, Patsy said that she found the note, then went to JonBenet's bedroom. When asked about stepping over the note, she responded, "I probably stepped over it." Then she said, "'Cause we sometimes lay papers and stuff there to go up." After she found JonBenet missing, she went to the stairs leading to the 3rd floor and yelled to John. He came down, and she explained what had happened. John said, "Call the police." Then he said, "What about Burke?" Then John went and checked on him, and Patsy went downstairs. "Okay, Patsy, do you recall who moved the note from the bottom of the stairs down to where John could read it with the good lighting?" "I think he did. Okay. Don't remember exactly, but I mean, I was just nuts. Okay, where were you at when you called 911? 'Cause I know there's kitchen." "Okay, when did you check on Burke during all this? You talked about John going to check on Burke." "Yeah, I think he ran and checked on him when I was up there. It just all happened so fast. I said, 'Oh my God, what about Burke?' and I think he ran in and checked him while I was running back downstairs or something. Okay, but I remember I think he ran and checked in on him, and he told me he was okay or whatever. Okay, was Burke still in the same bed? He hadn't moved beds or anything like that? I don't know. I didn't go in there and look. I just remember my mom rushing in my room, flipping the lights on, looking around, and rushing out. Who entered next? The policeman going into my room. It was either my dad coming in and turning off the lights, or a policeman coming into my room looking around. Wait. It was my dad coming into my room and turning off the lights. And then there was the policeman coming in and looking around with the flashlight. Mr. Ramsey told French that the family dog was at a neighbor's and he believed the doors were locked that night. He told French that he didn't hear anything unusual in the night. He told French that they arrived home at 10 p.m. Mrs. Ramsey told French JonBenet was dressed in white long underwear and a red turtleneck when she went to bed. She told French the house doors were all locked. French examined the interior of the house. He did not see any signs of forced entry or struggle. At this time, he might have examined the basement and tried the door to the wine cellar. Mrs. Ramsey called her mother to tell her the bad news. Okay, before the police arrived and after you guys checked on Burke, did either of you run through the house and check the house at all? John, I remember him running, going like to the doors, various doors, 'cause I kept saying, how did they get in? How did they get in? And he checked some of the doors, I remember. The door to the garage, from the coat room there. I just remember him kind of going around checking. I think he went down to the butler kitchen there. Checked, I don't know, I wasn't watching, he did. Did he ever make a comment about any of the doors being unlocked to you? Did he find any doors unlocked that you recall? He didn't say that he did. Officer Veach moved his car a block away from the Ramseys. Sergeant Rickenbach arrived at the Ramseys' residence. John Fernie parked in the back alley, and he read the note from outside the house through the glass window. Fleet and Priscilla White parked in the front of the house in his truck and entered the Ramsey house. And at the Fernie residence, Barbara Fernie called Father Rowland. Mr. Ramsey attempted to call Rod Westmoreland and spoke to his assistant. He explained what had happened. She said that she would get in touch with Rod right away. Mr. Ramsey called Mike Archuleta and spoke to Pam Archuleta. Where's Michael? He's out at the plane. What's wrong? What's up? They've got JonBenet. She's gone. They've got her. What do you mean they've got her? She's been kidnapped. Mr. Ramsey called Mike Archuleta at the airport and spoke to Richie, another. Then Mike returned Mr. Ramsey's phone call and spoke to an upset Patsy Ramsey. She handed the phone over to Mr. Ramsey, and he told Mike to get a message to John Andrew to call his father. When Mr. Ramsey was on the telephone, Mr. Fleet White went down to the basement, and he said he went and looked at the broken basement window, and he moved the suitcase. He did find a piece of glass on the floor, and he said he put it on the windowsill, and then he went to the door of the wine cellar, and he opened the door. and he looked inside and couldn't see anything, and he said he couldn't find the light switch, so he closed the door and latched it and went back upstairs. Okay, later on, when you kind of had a chance, when the note was laid in the TV room there, you guys kind of had a chance to look it over. Any of the wordings seem significant to you? Anything jump out at you from the reading that note? I didn't really read it. I just couldn't bear to read it. Okay. So, I kind of glanced at it to kind of see if I recognized the handwriting. But I don't know if I ever did read the whole thing. Okay, so let me make sure I got this right. You read a little bit of it, the first part of it, at the very beginning, got the flavor for what had gone on, and then you remember reading the signature. And that's about the extent of the note you read. Right. I might have glanced and seen the $118,000. But I didn't read the whole thing. French told Sergeant Reckenbach that it was possible an actual kidnapping had taken place. Reckenbach paged victim advocates, detectives, and crime scene investigators. And it was still dark outside. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved. And so, what do you think? Was this a real kidnapping? Was it an intruder? Were you suspicious of Patsy? Of John? Or both of them covering up for Burke? What do you think? See you next week.